Hello again, everyone. I'd like to take a few minutes and note the 100th birthday of a lady by the name of Kim Jong Suk. And here she is, a picture of her with a rifle. And she was a very kind of an important person in the history of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And, after all, if you're going to study a place, a nation or a country, you're going to want to know who the major players are, the major historical figures, and she's right up there. She's pretty high. She's regarded as the mother of the country, as a matter of fact. That's the name they give her. And so let me tell you something a little bit about her. She was born way up north in the country, in Haryang. I think that's how you pronounce it. And here's a map. I've circled the city in red. This is right on the border with China. Right across the Tumen River is Jilin Province in China. And here's a picture of her when she was a little child, a drawing of her. Kim Jong Suk was the wife of Kim Jong Un. I believe they met something in somewhere around, I think, 1932, and then they were married in 1937. Here's a family portrait, and another family portrait here, a picture. And I kind of really like this painting of them together, kind of like a Korean Gothic thing going on there, if you will. It's the two children, that's Kim Jong-il and his sister Kim Kyung-wi. There was another child in there, a third one, but I didn't find pictures, or maybe I found one picture. But anyway, this is what I have up. Here's an interesting picture of the family on horseback, very stylized, but it kind of gives you an instrument. They're up on Mount Paktu, or by Mount Paktu. I think that's Mount Paktu in the distance there, on the sacred mountain there. Kim Il-sung is on that white horse, and apparently that's some reference to the horse that they say he had some sort of a relationship with when, a partnership with, I should say, when he was fighting the Japanese. That horse had something to do with giving him an advantage over the Japanese. Like I say, they were married in 1937. Here's a nice picture of them. And it looks like, to me, it was kind of they were one of these things where they're meant for each other. They found each other and kind of fell in love, or what. There looks some romance going on there, if you ask me. As a young woman, Kim Jong Suk had the reputation of being quite the guerrilla fighter, because she was involved with the resistance, Kim Il-sung's resistance against the Japanese occupation, and so she got a reputation of being out there with the guys, giving. I mean, there's a lot of women that fought with the men in the guerrilla group, so she wasn't the only one, of course. Here's a famous picture of her protecting her husband. And there's a legend or a story or whatever that goes with that. It's well known that apparently he was asleep or something. They were asleep and they were surprised by a Japanese patrol. She jumps up and, don't worry, husband, I got this. Not a problem. She looks to me like she's using a Mauser, it was a C96 broom handle. Picture of it here. And this is quite a weapon. They had a box magazine on there just in front of the trigger. And it, for those of you who know something about guns and ammunition, it was a 7.62 by 25. I believe they called that a Tokarev round at the time, or something like that. Tokarev may have been a 763. Something like that. It's like a 30 caliber. But what I'm saying is that the pistol itself, that Mauser C96, packed a punch. It's a 30 caliber bullets. I believe it was the most powerful handgun around until the 357 Magnum came along. But yeah, it would be, for anybody, it would be a handful, and she did a pretty good job with it. Here's another picture of where they're fighting in the snow, and Kim Jong Suk is holding the baby Kim Jong Il with her left arm while she's fighting off the Japanese with her right. And again, she's got that machine pistol. And it was a pretty interesting picture, but you know, realistically, how is she going to, you know, what's she going to do with the kid when she needs to swap out magazines real quickly? I mean, but anyway, it's a nice picture. And Kim Jong Suk, she died in 1949, I believe, in childbirth, having her fourth child. And there's various stories about how she died. There's different other stories, but the most commonly accepted is she died in childbirth. I have a folder on a hard drive just stuffed with pictures of Kim Jong Suk, and so I just thought I'd just pull some images out for you, just kind of at random here. One thing that strikes me when I'm looking at these pictures, and as I've said before, and as the old saying goes, you know, a picture speaks 1,000 words. Pictures give you a real insight, images, into the truth, into what you're trying to find out. And as I'm looking at all these pictures I have, an idea is starting to develop in my head. And it's starting to gel, and I'm thinking, you know, something's going on here that I don't think a lot of people have thought about. You know, you look at her statue. Here's a statue of Kim Jong Suk, and she's kind of, I guess she's dressed as a revolutionary here. She has on an officer's tunic, and a pistol on a belt, and she has her boots and that pleated skirt. That pleated skirt was like, I guess, a signature thing. I don't know, but I don't know enough about that. But she always kind of wore that pleated skirt. And then here's some other image of her. It's kind of interesting. Here she's unveiling a statue, taking the kids on a mountain hike. I think these are the young pioneers. She's holding a meeting with military personnel, somehow explaining strategy or whatever she's doing. And then here she has conducting some kind of a ceremony with a unit in the field. Not sure what the story is behind that. But and then here are three other images that I find really, really interesting. Here she's all standing. Here first one is she's standing by a lake with some little white flowers in the grass there. And then the second one is she's standing by some pink azaleas. I believe those are azaleas, and she's in her military uniform. And then the third one is she's standing by what looks to be peonies, I believe. Again, she's wearing a military garb. And the more I look at these pictures, the more I'm confronted with a kind of a problem. Is how do we explain her high status? Because all these images and pictures of her, she has a pretty high status as the mother of the country. So how do we explain that? I mean, she's the wife of, you know, the eternal president, Kim Il-sung, and she's the mother of what they call the Eternal General Secretary, which is Kim Jong-il. So she has that going for her, but in her own right, she has status. And this leads me to the question, or to the observation that, generally speaking, Stalinist governments, Stalinist regimes, totalitarian regimes, don't give status to women. I mean, I can't remember any totalitarian state where a woman has been a major player, even a minor player. It's an all-male dominated thing. You don't find any women sharing any position of authority. To raise them up to where she can give orders to people. And here's this picture that really fascinates me, and look at it again with Kim Jong Suk sitting near a table, and she's holding that newspaper. And this is what I think is a really iconic pose. You see this a lot. You used to see it way back in the day when they had paintings of big shot diplomats and leaders, and here's a series of them. And you see these guys are standing by a table on a map or papers, or they're sitting by a table with papers. They're looking into, directly at you, and they're people of authority. They're people to be reckoned with. And here we have Kim Jong Suk, the same pose, the same arrangement, where she's sitting at the table. She has a lot of books behind her, which would indicate that she's a scholar, and she's reading the newspaper, which tells us that she's concerned with what's going on in the country. And she's looking at the paper and going, well, okay, she's keeping up on the news. So I find that interesting, and it tells me that she's not only a guerrilla fighter, like she is with the rifle, but she's a decision maker. She made decisions that affected the country. Here's an interesting painting that I kind of find fascinating, because there she is on Mount Paktu with other movers and shakers. Kim Il Sung is in the center, but she's right there, and she stands out. She's got her colorful group on, and she's not wearing a military uniform here. She's wearing, dressed rather nicely. And of course, it's a highly stylized image, but it conveys the thought that she is a major player. Kim Jong Suk is, she's a decision maker with the other people. And like I say, I'm not aware of any totalitarian regime that has ever elevated a woman to this status. So, in fact, to tell you the truth, I'm not really aware of any government that has, to any degree. You look at the United States, probably the only woman that has been raised to that level, that has been popular with the people and raised to that level, was probably Dolly Madison. And if you go to the UK, the United Kingdom, Great Britain, you'd probably go, well, you'd have to go all the way back to Elizabeth I. And in France, it would be Joan of Arc. When has a woman enjoyed any kind of status since Joan of Arc? I don't know. Possibly. In Russia, it would be Catherine the Great. During the Lenin and Stalin and the rest of them, they never put a woman up there. At least I can't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong, but at least not the level of Kim Jong Suk. And unlike Dolly and Catherine and Elizabeth and Joan, Kim Jong Suk is thought of as being the mother of the nation. And to me, that's kind of really, really interesting. It gives you an insight into, the way kind of the way the North Koreans think about these things. There's a room for a woman. And I'm not a feminist, don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those. But I'm just fascinated with that they elevate a woman to that status and give her status in her own right. So maybe we should starting to question this whole idea of just how much of a totalitarian government is North Korea. I mean, they've got a supreme leader, and what he says goes, which I'll be making another video on that. But yeah, you know, it gives us, I think, kind of an idea of maybe it's not quite as authoritarian as we've been led to believe. I mean, it is, but you know, there's room. There's room for you know, there's a little bit of leeway in there. How much, I don't know. But anyway, just remembering Kim Jong Suk on her 100th birthday, and rest in peace. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.